What's up guys, this is Cinema Crossover. I'm back with a new episode of Naruto was the Red Flash part 44, and if you did enjoy the video, give it a like, and if you're new on my channel and like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 15. Better Than Ever Before Earth 1. Late November 2015, Los Angeles, California. Barry in his flash suit stood on the slope of the Hollywood sign, looking out over Los Angeles. He'd raced all the way here as part of a test to improve his speed. In his hands was a Tachyon speed enhancer, identical in design to the one Naruto used to double his speed, but with fewer metal components and a smaller Tachyon core. Although this appears to be a decrease, its energy output was substantially higher. The reason for this was due to the upgrades Naruto had planned for it. It was one of the items he had placed on the USB stick with his final words. Wells and Minato collaborated with Cisco to create it, and happily, they had enough experience from the last time to make the process speedier than it had been. They were able to manufacture the Tachyon speed enhancer in a week with Gideon's assistance and Naruto's meticulous notes and blueprints, whereas on Earth 2 it took over a month and a half. Looks like you were right, Cisco. Big Belly Burger is better than In-N-Out, Barry said into his cowl's comm device as he quickly gathered the trash and raced it to a nearby dumpster before returning. I told you, man. I tried it myself once and Big Belly Burger always. I still don't know why they don't have any places in LA, but whatever. Their loss. So, rested and ready to get started. Cisco said. Yeah, I am, Barry said, but was it necessary for me to run all the way to LA for this test? Back to Star Labs. At Star Labs, Cisco, Caitlin, Ronnie, Minato, Kushina, Mito, Wells, Linda, Joe, and Iris were in the Cortex. Tsunade was at the shelter, and Gaara was occupied with chores with his siblings. Everyone was staring at the main display, which was showing the Star Labs satellite feed in a map with a blinking red dot in California, indicating that they were tracking Barry. Barry's vitals, which were being supplied to them by his suit, were also displayed on the monitor. Not really, but it will give us better data and you real-world training on your reaction speed than if we just put you on the cosmic treadmill. Minato explained. Right. So, what exactly do I do again? Barry clarified. It's rather simple. You put the device on your chest. And you run back here as fast as you can. Wells explained as he ate a Big Belly Burger. Mito kicked his thigh and Kushina poked him in the side because his blasé delivery was just Wells being Wells. Ow. Excuse me, Wells, that's just him being himself, and we can't change that, Kushina said, apologizing. It's fine, but are you sure this thing doesn't have any adverse side effects? Barry inquired. No, nothing like that. Gideon has a lot of information on Tachyon speed enhancement, so we were careful. Naruto didn't experience any adverse side effects at all, and thanks to the information he put on the thumb drive, we've been able to improve the original design and output. Minato informed him. And what does that mean exactly? Iris inquired. It'll make Barry a lot faster, Ronnie replied, having direct knowledge of what was going on. Your current top speed is about Mach 2.5, and you were able to get to Los Angeles in about an hour with that, but with the Tachyon speed enhancer, you should be able to get back to Central City in about 15 minutes if you push yourself, Kushina said. I'm ready to begin. Back to Barry. All right, Barry said as he placed the Tachyon speed booster on his chest. He secured the 4 anchor points and powered on the Tachyon core over his lightning bolt emblem. The core began to glow blue, pouring energy into Barry's body. Whoa. Oh yeah, I get that. That's the Tachyons charging up the speed force in your cells like a battery. And with the design improvements we were able to make, the energy increase will definitely make you faster, Minato explained. Alright, let's do it, Barry remarked, taking a runner's stance. Alright, Flash, Wells responded. And go. Barry set off running, creating a strong surge of wind that rattled the Hollywood sign. All that could be seen was a fast-moving flash of yellow lightning that flashed past Los Angeles in the blink of an eye before traveling east. Many people wondered whether there was going to be a thunderstorm when they heard a distant clap of thunder, but it was actually Barry breaching the sound barrier and each successive barrier as his speed climbed. He increased his speed from Mach 2.5 to Mach 5 to Mach 7. Damn, that thing's got him cruising, Cisco said, Noticing how much faster Barry was getting and how rapidly he was approaching Central City. He was already traveling at Mach 8. "And how's he doing?" Iris inquired, concerned. Caitlin exclaimed in astonished surprise, "His vitals are perfect." "I told you this would work," Kushina said. "Barry, how are you doing?" "I'm doing really well. Let's take it up a notch. Woohoo!" Barry's speed increased as he reached a new blistering top speed of Mach 10.5. City center back at the Cortex, the team saw the map and Barry's tracking beacon virtually zoom over places that had previously been a sluggish slog across. The minutes flew fast, and soon a strong rush of wind blew by them as Barry entered the Cortex. End time. Minato pressed a stopwatch button and checked the time before performing some fast calculations. You traveled 1,847 miles at an increasing speed until you reached Mach 10.5, and you returned to Central City in about 0.14 minutes 27 seconds. "I got stuck at the Grand Canyon and had to go around," Barry explained as Cisco handed him a bottle of water. "Wait, did you just say Mach 10? 10.5 making your new top speed 8,056 miles per hour, give or take a mile or so," Wells said. "That's what I'm talking about, man," Cisco exclaimed as he approached him and high-fived him. "Don't get too excited yet. Naruto's top speed was slightly more than Mach 12, and Zoom was able to keep up with him during their last fight. You still need to get faster," Wells said as Kushina stepped up and removed the Tachyon device from Barry's chest. She then performed a short physical on him and handed him a high-calorie energy bar. "He's right, so this was a very good first step in making you faster. You rest a little, do some training, and then we give you another Tachyon boost, and you'll see how much faster you can get," Kushina said. "Why not do it right away?" "Why wait?" Joe questioned. Barry's already had his first Tachyon speed enhancement, and all scans show that his body is adapting to the increase in energy, which also means the increase in speed. Everything his body has absorbed at this point is what he can handle without any ill effects, Kushina replied. "Think of speedsters like batteries. They have a maximum charge, but with some modifying they can handle a larger one, which in turn makes their overall power larger than it was originally. But you force too much energy into a battery, and it can explode. And in this context by explode I mean do severe damage. When Naruto had us work this out, Gideon confirmed that a speedster would realistically only be able to handle a smaller charge. And while 2 charges may not seem like much, Naruto did improve the Tachyon matrix, so it'll give a stronger boost the second time," Wells said. "We'll pick up this tomorrow." "Alright, before we call it a day, I think it's time we talk with our newest guest," Barry remarked, taking up his mask and heading to the Cortex to speak with Linda's doppelganger. When Dr. Light awoke in the pipeline, she freaked out, and Linda explained what had happened and that she was stranded there, so she should get comfortable. I guess the passage of time made her more cooperative, because when Barry began asking her questions, she responded. Linda too explained, "Zoom sent me here to kill you, but I didn't want to. But from what I hear, you were fine with trying to kill your doppelganger, which is why I'm glad my Linda is more powerful," Barry pointed out. "It seemed like the best bad idea, and I reacted instinctively the second I saw her," Linda too explained. "I kill her and take her life, leave her body for Zoom so he'd think I was dead and then I'd be free. You have no idea what it's been like where I come from. The things Zoom has done. He's a monster. And you know what's funny? For a brief moment, I thought he was actually gone." "What exactly are you talking about?" Barry inquired. "A new speedster showed up in my Central City. He was faster than the Flash I've fought, and after a huge fight with Zoom all across the city he was Mia for months. A lot of people thought that Zoom finally died. Then he showed back up with a vengeance and new thirst for blood. Even before I was sent here, he was still causing havoc. That new speedster tried to stop him again, but he hadn't been seen since. Guess he's dead too," Linda too muttered. When Barry was on Earth 2 with Ronnie, he understood she was talking about Naruto. How was Zoom supposed to know where to find her body? Barry pondered. Linda too begged him, "Just let me go. Let me disappear." You'd spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, not knowing when Zoom would appear. "Okay, and what's your brilliant idea?" Linda too inquired. "How were you supposed to contact him after you had killed me?" Barry wondered. "I was supposed to get something that I could only get if you were dead, and then throw it through the breach as proof. And then what? Then he'd come for me, confirm the killing, and bring me home. Why do you want to know? Because I want to find him. Barry explained. You really don't, Linda too advised him, but Barry gave her his most solemn expression. That speedster you said he killed, the one on your planet who had a chance at stopping him, he was my friend. My brother in every way except name. And I couldn't help him. Zoom hunted him down, so it's time I did the same. He's gonna keep coming for me. He's gonna keep kidnapping people like you, forcing them to do what he wants. I have to stop him before more people die, Barry said. You won't be able to stop Zoom. Your friend tried, and look what happened to him. That's why I'm going to stop him. And I could use your assistance, Barry explained. Sorry, Flash, but I've seen how going up against Zoom ends. Linda too sat in the corner of her cage. Barry was dissatisfied, so he clicked a button on her cell door, and she retreated back into the pipeline, joining Henry Hewitt and, ironically, Zoom's time remnant. The rest of the team was in the cortex when they seen a blur sprint by them, followed by Barry, who had changed out of his suit and into his usual clothes. So, that didn't go as you expected, did it? Joe inquired. No, it didn't, Barry confessed. She's scared. Given what I saw on Earth 2, she's not an idiot to be afraid and distrustful of us, Ronnie remarked. Zoom had some metahumans working for him as minions, and we didn't hear any stories about any of them trying to take him out. Because no one would be stupid enough to try it, and if they did, they'd die in seconds, Minato explained. You can think of Zoom's control over our central city as similar to that of a mob boss, except that it's primarily fear that keeps everyone in line. And his most recent power boost only means he's gotten stronger, faster, and more out of control, Wells added. Alright, but that's not going to stop us. Even if Light doesn't want to help us, we're going to stop him, Barry said when Linda had an idea. We don't need her. We just need her suit, Linda stated, and everyone stared at her, puzzled, although some could see where she was heading with her concept. It's fine if my doppelganger doesn't want to help. I can do it. That's right, and your powers are nearly identical to hers, albeit stronger. That could actually work, Kushina pointed out. So, what's the plan exactly? Linda just strolls over to Earth 2 and pretends to be her evil doppelganger, Caitlin inquired. I'm still working on that, but we use what Light told me. She said she would get something she could only get if I was dead. So, I'm thinking we have Linda here wear Light's costume, she throws my emblem into a breach, and when Zoom comes to check my body, we can trap him. Barry said, quickly pulling a plan out of his buttocks, but it was a solid one that needed some fine-tuning. You know it took a lot of work to make that emblem, Cisco remarked. Well, it's not the most elegant plan, but it's not terrible either. We'd have to tweak some details, but it could work, Minato observed. I've been going over all of the data that Naruto left for us to use against Zoom. He was designing a new method of disrupting a speedster's ability to move at super speed. We used anti-speedster nanites last time and we'll likely use them again, but given Zoom's increase in power, using all methods available may be warranted. Wells added, and everyone agreed. Well, this new method would have to be something completely unexpected, Iris observed. I haven't known Naruto as long as you have, but he seems to excel at the unexpected, Wells said. And would it work? If Zoom is as fast as we think he is, how can we be sure? Caitlin wondered. Surprise. The element of surprise. Zoom can't stop what he can't see. We choose the time and place, and we can trap Zoom just as he passes through a breach, Wells said. That is, if you can deliver, Joe said. Don't worry, detective. I can deliver, Wells said as Caitlin sighed. Look, I don't want to be the negative Nancy here, but if we're going to do this, we need to be really prepared and careful. If Zoom is as powerful as we think he is, we can't take any risks or leave things to chance. Naruto wouldn't want us to do that, Caitlin explained, and everyone agreed. Maybe we should get some help. Gaara and Linda even the odds a little, Barry offered. I can try to contact Jiraiya. He took Naruto's death hard, but I think he'd come back to help us if he had a shot at Zoom. What about Oliver and the others? Cisco inquired, but Barry only shrugged. Oliver assisted us with Reverse Flash, but Zoom is different. He's dangerous, and Oliver and the others could get seriously hurt, Barry explained. Linda reminded him, but Oliver and the others care about Naruto as well. If they had a chance to help us, they'd want to know. Linda had a valid point, and Barry relented. All right, I'll call them, but we still have time. Tomorrow, I'll return to training, and as soon as we're ready, we'll stop Zoom. XXXXX line break warehouse of Star Labs. Except for Joe and Iris, who had to work, the majority of Team Flash was at Star Laboratories the next day. Linda took some personal time away from CCPN to train and prepare. Linda had her own version of Dr. Light's suit developed by Cisco and Minato that looked precisely the same but was Star Labs enhanced. Cisco constructed it out of the same polymer material that Naruto used to make her binary suit, making it more solid, resilient, and bulletproof. Minato constructed her the identical visor that Light wore, but with high-tech improvements including a HUD and a connection to Star Laboratories and Gideon. Linda had to admit to herself that, while she adored Naruto's binary suit, her Earth 2 doppelganger's outfit was far superior. Linda favored the visor above the mask, and if Naruto hadn't constructed her a suit, there was a solid 90% chance she would have opted to wear something similar to what Dr. Light wore. She and her lookalike must have had similar tastes. Linda went to a Star Labs warehouse for training, accompanied by Cisco and Minato. Mito joined us since she was bored and Kurama was on his way. Mito had been holding the little fox like a stuffed animal since she first saw him, which took some getting accustomed to. Mito strolled around the warehouse with Kurama in her arms, looking like a teddy bear, and the two looked adorable. She approached a cardboard cutout of Detective Joe West. Cisco?" Mito yelled out, and as he looked up, he saw Cisco on a trolley, setting up some equipment in the ceiling rafters. "How come you have these?" Cisco smiled and spun a cardboard cutout around, revealing him shooting a selfie with a camera. "It's important to have hobbies." He then struck the same position as his cutout and chuckled, while Mito looked at him strangely. "This world is so strange," Mito thought to herself as she headed over to the observation center, which consisted of only a few monitors where Cisco and her father could check things. Minato checked to make sure the system was operational, while Linda stretched and checked the Dr. Light outfit. "I really like the new suit." "Yeah. I do as well. I think I'll keep it." Linda remarked this while caressing Mito on the head and scratching Kurama on the head. "How are we looking?" "Everything is okay here. Everything is being recorded by systems. Sensors in your new suit are feeding to Star Labs, and everything is ready. How does it feel?" Minato inquired. "Feels good." Linda moved about and stretched her arms and legs in response. The Dr. Light outfit he and Cisco had created was both protective and comfy. Okay. Are you ready, Cisco?" Minato inquired as he approached. "Yup. I finished configuring the targets. Are you ready to begin?" Linda nodded as Cisco inquired. "All right." Minato clicked a few buttons before putting on tinted safety glasses with Cisco. Mito followed suit, before putting a little pair over Kurama's eyes. Linda turned aside as other cardboard cutouts began to pop in and out of the warehouse at breakneck speed. Half were members of the team, including Cisco, Joe, and Caitlin, while the other half were imitation cutouts of Zoom, which was actually simply a reverse flash cutout Cisco painted black. This was a training simulation designed to put Linda's precision and control of her talents to the test, as well as her speed and ability to deal with a simulated fast-moving target. The cutouts quickly popping up and down would resemble Speedster running around and becoming visible for a brief second before continuing to sprint. Linda had good control over her powers, but facing a Speedster was difficult enough. Granted, the targets weren't moving as quickly as a Speedster would, but the popping up and down, as well as the various targets, were close enough to aid until Barry concluded his training. The additional team cutouts would serve as targets to avoid. Cisco also brought some extra treats to the celebration by pulling out a remote control and activating numerous drones. These were carefully modified for improved speed and maneuverability, similar to the ones used to teach Barry and Naruto in the beginning. The drones would present more difficult targets for her to hit, as well as simulate attacks to help her improve her defensive talents. Linda's photokinesis was a significant ability given that she was able to vanquish her Earth 2 counterpart, but aside from that, she's never really had a reason to use her powers at all unless on a rare occasion. She was fine with occasionally assisting, but she preferred to leave the superhero stuff to Barry and Naruto. That was no longer an option, and she had something to focus on, making her training go much faster. Aside from the obvious powers of absorbing light for energy, projecting it as powerful light beams, blinding people with light, flying, and some general boosted durability, combined with Linda's recently discovered hard light projection, she possessed a plethora of other abilities. Cisco and Caitlin had ideas, and Naruto obviously did as well, because they discovered his superhero files. Files on metahumans or other heroes like him, the Flash, Arrow, or, if necessary, Green Arrow, Batman, the Atom, and even Vixen. Linda's dossier was thin, given that she wasn't exactly a costumed crime fighter, but it had a lot of Naruto's study on her powers and what she could achieve with her photokinesis in principle. One of them was hard light projection, which she now knew how to do but would take some time to fully master. She and the others didn't expect she'd master all of her alleged powers in one training session, but she may acquire a new one that could save her life. Linda's eyes glowed brightly white before she raised her hand and launched a light blast that annihilated a target. When another one of Zoom appeared, she fired a light blast that was too slow and didn't hit anything. Linda's helmet obscured her eyes, allowing the others to see her intent, steely expression, but it was one of pure determination. She wasn't alone in this. Another Star Labs facility Wells, Kushina, and Caitlin oversaw and monitored Barry and Gaara's training. Gaara, like Barry and Linda, had a firm handle on his abilities, and his performance against Sand Demon demonstrated that he knew what he was capable of. The new Sand Demon was a force to be reckoned with that moniker. Because the variety of his powers could be a major help in the war against Zoom, Barry offered to train Gaara against a speedster. The three doctors, scientists watched as Barry zipped around the warehouse, dodging Gaara's attempts to hit, touch, or imprison him. Barry was traveling at a leisurely pace considering they were in a warehouse and this was training, but even at a maximum speed of Mach 1 it wasn't easy. Gaara's sand was powerful, and the fact that he could control it with a single thought made him lethal. When Gaara was under Orochimaru's mental control last year, they had plenty of practice. Gaara could make his sand do anything, but it could never approach the top speed of a speedster, or even the speed of sound. Gaara was floating in the air on what Cisco jokingly referred to as his sand cloud. More sand erupted from the gourd he carried on his back, which was dripping with sand, and Gaara was dressed as a superhero. Cisco offered to design him something new, but Gaara had become attached to his current design. He was fine with his signature long-sleeved crimson coat, black trousers, combat boots, combat vest, and enormous gourd on his back. So Cisco created a comparable costume out of better material, similar to the ones used in Barry's suit and Linda's new one, to be durable yet light and bulletproof. Cisco also added a new mask because the fabric covering over his nose and the goggles on his head weren't enough to keep him safe and protect his identity. Cisco went all out and created a helmet for him. It was tied to his collar and could be compacted when not in use, but when activated, it came around his head. It featured an air purifying system built in so Gaara could breathe without sand going into his mouth, as well as a HUD with a range of visual settings. It was also constructed of durable metal stuff, so it shielded him, and Gaara had the eyes glow a menacing yellow for some intimidation points. 1. Barry continued to sprint around the warehouse, dodging sand tendrils and sand hands that pursued and attempted to catch him. Following a wave of sand, Barry made a sharp left turn and ran up and along the wall. Gaara reassembled some sand into spears and hurled them through the air, all in the course of Barry's planned running path, causing the speedster to swerve and dodge. Barry then sent a lightning bolt towards Gaara, who fired a sand glob as a protection. Lightning struck the glob, causing a dazzling flash of light that rapidly transformed it into a giant blob of glass that fell to the floor and broke. Gaara discovered during his combat with Reverse Flash that his sand was vulnerable to a speedster's lightning. The Reverse Flash converted the sand cloud beneath him into glass, and if it hadn't been for Firestorm's quick intervention, he would have hit the ground hard and been vulnerable to an attack. The sand blob method could now keep him safe, but his best bet was to stay away. Barry leapt from the wall and landed on the ground, spinning like a top to produce a mini tornado that kept Gaara's sand at bay. He then started rotating his arms, creating massive and powerful wind funnels. While Gaara's sand control was strong, the intensity of the wind made it more difficult, requiring him to focus more on keeping himself level and in the air rather than on his opponent. Gaara pulled both of his arms across his chest, causing a massive cluster of sand from his gourd to wrap itself around him in a protective bubble, dome, which he hardened until it had the consistency of concrete. The dome now shielded him from the brisk wind. Gaara's sort of total protection mode had a drawback in that he couldn't see, but with the mask Cisco developed for him, including the HUD with several vision modes including X-ray, heat, and motion sensor, he could now keep track of an opponent. Various tentacle-like appendages burst from the dome and lashed out like whips at Barry, forcing him to evade at breakneck speed. The sand whips kept Barry on the defensive while more sand from the dome molded into other weapons and joined the offensive. Caitlin was using a touchpad to monitor Gaara's vitals during training and noticed that they were becoming agitated, so she hit a button, and a loud screeching alarm went off. "Alright, boys. Let's take a short rest," Caitlin informed them. Barry dashed over to them, removing his cowl as Gaara's sand dome hung in the air before dropping to the ground and dissolving. As the sand flowed back into his gourd, he stepped onto the ground and touched a button on his mask, causing it to retract back around his collar. Because of how much he pushed himself and his powers during the training session, his face was a touch sweaty and his breathing was a little difficult. Barry was taking a few deep breaths, although he wasn't as strained or fatigued as Gaara. "How did that go?" Gaara inquired, hunching over slightly as his chest and back heaved from his heavy breathing. Caitlin approached him and handed him a water bottle and an energy bar. "It's pretty good. Keeps me on my toes, for sure," Barry agreed. "You've definitely earned the Sand Demon's moniker. He was nowhere near as diverse or powerful as you," Kushina informed him. "I can trap Zoom if I just get a small cluster of my sand around him. I'm confident I can. The only difficulty is that my sand cannot equal the speed of a speedy. In comparison, I'm practically standing still," Gaara stated. "You seem to keep up with Barry easily enough." Caitlin brought this up. "He did, but not at a fast pace. I was going slower for training, but Gaara kept me on edge with pure overpowering force and never-ending pressure," Barry informed her. Gaara is correct. In a perfect situation, he and his sand could be able to move at roughly 200 miles per hour, which is nowhere near fast enough to match Barry's top speed or Zoom. Gaara's deficit here is speed, but his advantages could be what gives us the advantage over Zoom. Gaara's sand control gives him possibilities and range, which could be the edge that keeps Zoom off balance long enough for us to stop him. And you've identified another of your sand's weaknesses against a fast. Wells brought this up. Nice catch using a sand projectile to handle Barry's lightning throw. Caitlin was pleased. "Well, I had some experience with reverse flash. The only drawback I can see is that my gourd can only carry so much sand before it becomes too heavy for me to walk around with. And, considering that we're dealing with a speedster, I'd prefer to be able to move quickly," Gaara proposed. "We can work around that by hiding sand containers around the area where we plan to do this," Barry said, and Gaara nodded. "Alright, let's take a quick break and get back to work." "Sounds good to me," Gaara said as he and Barry resumed their break before returning to training. After a few hours, Star Laboratories' Barry was resuming his training, this time on the cosmic treadmill at his new top speed of Mach 10.5 with the Tachyon speed enhancer attached to his chest, fully charged for another speed increase. Cisco made certain that the cosmic treadmill was ready for Barry's training session and that it could withstand the power of his sudden speed. Everyone else was in the observation room to keep an eye on things and to be safe. "Alright, Barry. Here we go." Minato activated the Tachyon speed enhancer by pressing a few buttons on his touch tablet. The energy core sparkled and continued to feed Tachyon energy into Barry's cells. Barry's yellow-orange lightning flared more intensely as his pace rose. The whirling of the mat Barry was jogging on was accompanied by the high-speed hum of the cosmic treadmill. The team watched as the speedometer on their display increased from 8,100 to 9,207 to 10,741 miles per hour. "Go, Barry. Go!" Cisco exclaimed as Barry quickened his pace. He was completely concentrated on sprinting as he felt more power rush into his body, making him faster. He felt the same exhilaration adrenaline junkies have while riding a roller coaster that crests over a massive slope before crashing down. That's how he always felt when he ran, but suddenly something was different. A feeling of inner tranquility yet great power in perfect harmony, which he hadn't felt since Thawne taught him how to phase through physical objects. When the trickers placed the explosives on his wrist while he was racing, Thawne talked to him, and the words he said put him in a trance-like state where all he felt was speed and lightning. That was the sensation he was having again, only this time it was stronger. Barry was gradually tapping into the speed force, unbeknownst to him and the others. As Barry raced, his vision began to blue shift imperceptibly, similar to when he and Naruto ran in the particle accelerator ring for Thawne's time travel plan. Thawne informed them that they were experiencing the speed force, implying that Barry was seeing it for the second time. The speed force showed him a central city this time, but it wasn't the central city he was born, raised, and lived in. It appeared to be both extremely futuristic and 1950s, golden age in style. The blimp flying over the city contributed to this. Barry was perplexed as to why he was seeing this central city until he noticed two streaks of lightning racing by. One lightning streak was blue and blood red, while the other was white and crimson. Barry was watching Naruto race against Zoom following his connection to the negative speed force, and their combat was both ferocious and violent. Zoom was determined to destroy Naruto, and Naruto fought back with everything he had. He witnessed them arrive in what seemed to be Earth 2's New York, where they fought hand to hand. Zoom slammed Naruto into a car, but Naruto hit him in the stomach and face numerous times before they continued racing. The more they clashed, the more energy built up between them. They arrived to the Grand Canyon, where they charged at one another and clashed in a massive flash of light followed by a nuclear bomb-like force explosion. As his vision shifted, Barry noticed Naruto's goggles laying on the ground, half burnt with a massive fracture down the center of one of the lenses. Barry's Speed Force vision came to an end, and he found himself back in the cosmic treadmill room, still running at his new high speed of Mach 17, or nearly 13,043 miles per hour. Cisco yelled across the speaker, "Barry, can you hear me?" "Yeah," Barry exclaimed as he slowed to a halt and pulled his hood down. "What's up?" "You tell us," Cisco asked. "We've been trying to get your attention for the past 10 minutes. Are you okay, Barry?" "It was like you were in a trance," Iris worriedly said as Barry reflected on what he had seen. "Sort of," he replied. The crew proceeded to the Cortex, where Caitlin and Kushina performed a short medical assessment on Barry to ensure he was well, which he was. His body reacted perfectly to the second Tachyon augmentation, and he now had the fastest top speed they'd ever recorded. Kushina flashed a light into Barry's eyes, looking for any signs of injury. "There is no evidence of retinal trauma," she stated. "I told you I was fine," Barry assured her and everyone else as he slipped on his sweater. "It was a sort of Speed Force vision, like when Naruto and I made that wormhole for Thawne." Cisco remarked, "Ah, memories. So, what exactly did you see?" "Naruto's final fight with Zoom." "In the aftermath," Barry replied, and everyone realized why he was so serious. It was appropriate motivation. Zoom's reign of terror has ended. "Amen," Linda answered, with Gaara, Minato, and Kushina nodding in agreement. "Is that it? Barry's good to go?" Joe inquired. "Pretty much. He got his second boost with the Tachyon speed enhancer and his body has adjusted nicely to the influx of energy," Minato said, placing the gadget on a trolley. "It should definitely be enough." "And we can't just rig up a small one Barry to keep hidden in case he needs it?" Iris asked, but was met with head nods. "No, his body has absorbed all of the excess Tachyon energy it can. Attempting a third time could severely damage the speed force in his cells," Kushina explained. "With Linda, Gaara, and the countermeasures, it should be enough," Barry hoped. "Okay. Did you find a location near a breach where we won't have to worry about civilians getting in the way?" "Yeah, there's a spot near the docks that's usually empty at night," Cisco replied. "Awesome. How are we doing with our countermeasures?" Barry inquired. "We've got plenty set up and several options, and I'll triple check them to make sure they're ready," Wells explained. "Okay, that's great. Hey, so are we really prepared for this?" Cisco inquired. "There's no time like the present. The sooner we get this done, the better," Linda said. "I'll check in with Jiraiya and Oliver." "Alright. Once they get here, we do this thing," Barry said as he exited the Cortex. Some members of the group, primarily Joe and Caitlin, were concerned about everything. Joe, being Joe, went to see Barry and caught up with him in the elevator. Joe entered the elevator with him and said, "Hey, Barry." What? Do you really think we're ready for this? Joe suggested, but Barry didn't see the point. No need. We're prepared, so let's get this over with. The sooner we stop Zoom, the better. I know what I'm doing, Joe, Barry informed him. Okay. I don't, so why don't you fill me in? I thought you were on board with that. You know what? I don't even understand why you think we have a choice here. Zoom wants me dead. The metahumans he's sending from Earth 2 don't care how many innocent people get in my way, and he doesn't care how many innocent people get in his way. We're all just playthings for his sick amusement. I know. I'm just wondering if going after him now is premature because this will be your first fight against him and all we have on him is theories and data, Joe said. Data has been vetted by Naruto and Wells. You're putting a lot of faith in the man wearing your mother's killer's face, Joe observed. Naruto did, and his situation with Wells was just as bad as mine, if not worse, Barry said, his voice tinged with remorse. What happened to Naruto wasn't your fault. You and everyone else know that. Well, it doesn't feel like it. Acknowledged Barry. Naruto spent months running and fighting for his life, while I was stuck here feeling sorry for myself. He needed us, and we couldn't help him, but what I can do is finish this fight for him. If anyone should have been stuck on Earth 2, it should have been me. There was nothing you could have done, Barry, because you didn't know, Joe told him. But I shouldn't have. I gave up on Naruto and I'm going to have to live with that for the rest of my life. Here I am, getting to live my life when Naruto's was snuffed out too soon. I mean, come on Joe, he was practically the kid of the group. He got his life back together, fell in love, and was trying to use Star Labs to help the world. If anyone deserved to live a long, full life with the... I think at the time we were talking about your high school football tryouts. You swore you wouldn't bring it up again, Barry reminded him. Joe was worried that Barry's desire for vengeance might lead to his death. XXXXX line break. The crew sprang into action the moment the sun set in Central City. They congregated near the docks, where there was a breach and no one was present. The dock workers had gone home for the day, and there was no one within a mile, giving the team the room and space to work without the fear of inadvertently injuring any innocent bystanders. The location of the breach was indicated by little ripples and distortions in the air near the docks, but it was undetectable, which is why no one had discovered it since the singularity closed. It was now their key to obtaining Zoom. Linda strolled along the pier in her Dr. Light outfit, a weave tied to her hair to mimic her doppelganger's ponytail. Where are you, Flash? Linda said, firing a light blast at a nearby dumpster to impersonate the villain. Barry sped into the area and slid to a stop in front of her a split second later. Okay, Dr. Light, here I am, he remarked as the two strode around each other as though in a combat. But we're skipping the part where you say you're going to kill me and going straight to the part where I don't let you. Says you. Flash. Linda fired a mild blast, but Barry evaded it and rushed straight at her, as was part of the plan. She fired 2 fast shots, striking him in the chest and left shoulder before avoiding him and zapping him in the back. Barry shouted out in pain, which was partially justified because the light blasts were painful, but Linda had reduced the intensity and they had reinforced his suit. Barry moaned in agony before collapsing on his back and passing asleep. I told you, Flash. Zoom always wins. Damn, Linda. Maybe you should try your hand at acting in your spare time, Cisco said across the comm channel. Linda walked over to the breach after removing Barry's insignia. Here it is, Zoom. I did what you asked for, now bring me home, she said as she hurled it into the gap, prompting it to appear. The trans-dimensional gateway of space and time became visible in front of her, and its amorphous shape undulated and altered. Wells, Ronnie, and Joe were perched on an overwatch position of a warehouse, armed with specialist weapons directed at the breach. They were designed to fire Naruto's speed-reducing nanite serum. Because it worked the first time, they would treble the dosage this time. Oliver, the Green Arrow, was perched on the top of the container crane, an arrow drawn back on his bow and pointed at the gateway. When Barry told him what had happened, he and the others were devastated to learn that Naruto had died, but he was more than willing to assist in the fight against Zoom. The rest of the team was still in Star City dealing with their present problems, but Oliver made the trip. He owed Naruto a great deal, and this was perhaps something he could do to repay him. Gaara was hidden in the neighboring warehouse, where there were containers of sand ready for him to use, and Jiraiya was waiting for him, dressed in black battle gear and a mask concealing his face from the nose down. He was armed with an Icer shotgun and his finger poised over the detonator attached to 6 grenades hidden in a crate near the breach. The brilliant blue energy core of these grenades was hidden beneath an old sheet. That was the other special countermeasure Naruto had devised for them, dubbed the Last Resort. They had a modified ion core that would release an electromagnetic pulse and was extremely deadly. The significant point was that, rather than impacting the magnetic fields of objects such as electronics, the ion core essentially launched a pulse of energy that disrupted all electrical charges in the near vicinity, including all types of tachyons. When exploded, the energy field released interacts with everything within a 30-foot radius and destroys all electrical charges. Everything from torches, cars, generators, and bullet priming charges to a speedster's human body and vitality. Speedsters were virtually walking lightning producers, so when the ion field reached them, it disrupted and cancelled all of the energy in their bodies, effectively shutting them down. It wasn't just speedsters, but a regular human's body was run by nerve-ending electrical impulses, therefore if a regular person was caught in the field, they would be shut down just as rapidly. Normal EMPs only harmed electronics or machines and did little to no harm to organics, but Naruto's version was just as lethal to organics as it was to electronics, and it could kill by disrupting the electrical impulse to the heart or brain and killing the human body. It was by far the most dangerous thing Naruto had ever constructed, but desperate circumstances demand desperate measures, which is why he called it the last resort. Fortunately, speedsters were more resilient and had a stronger electrical field and charge than typical people, so it wouldn't kill them, but it would certainly damage their powers and render them helpless, similar to the dilemma Barry faced with Blackout. Naruto had learnt from his previous experience with speed-dampening darts on Zoom that there was always a chance they wouldn't work or that the speedster would dodge them. Last time, Naruto's saving grace was that he turned it into an aerosol, so Zoom breathed the nanites but could evade them if he got faster. An energy field was nearly impossible to dodge, especially if you didn't see it coming. Caitlin, Cisco, Iris, Minato, and Kushina were in the Star Lab's cortex, watching everything through the concealed cameras they had put around the region, with the Star Laboratory's satellite monitoring any energy readings. Mito was safely tucked away in the time vault with Kurama in case something bad happened and Zoom showed up at Star Laboratories. The team and everyone waited in anticipation for Zoom to emerge from the breach, but nothing happened as the minutes passed. While Linda moved back and forth by the breach, Barry remained on the ground, behaving as if he was either dead or knocked out. Everyone else was still waiting for him, but nothing had happened. After 1 hour, Barry was still lying on the ground, pretending to be dead, but he felt a little tight, so he shifted his leg and straightened his back. Linda muttered, "Hey, stop fidgeting." "Sorry," Barry replied, "I landed in a ridiculous position and my foot fell asleep." "He's probably just waiting to see if you're really dead, and he'll strike any minute now," Cisco replied, wiping his eyes and swallowing a yawn. Caitlin pointed out, "You said that an hour ago, Cisco." "Caitlin's right. Shouldn't something have happened by now?" Gaara wondered. "I don't think Zoom's coming," Oliver said as he removed his arrow from his bow and replaced it in his quiver. "I'm going to have to agree with Robin Hood," Jiraiya said as he walked out of the warehouse, the Icer shotgun slung over his shoulder. Zoom either knew this was a trap or is too busy doing something else. Barry sighed and sat up, removing his cowl. "So, now what?" "We try again," Jiraiya said, helping Barry to his feet. "Let's call it quits for the night." Joe, Ronnie, and Wells descended from their perch, followed by Gaara and Oliver, who swung down on a grapple line. "I'm sorry you came all the way to Central City for nothing," Barry apologized. "It's fine, Barry. All you had to do to get justice for Naruto was ask," Oliver reassured him. "What do you think happened? Why didn't Zoom show up?" inquired Barry. "Perhaps Jiraiya is correct. Maybe Zoom sensed something was off. You said you captured a copy of his, right? One that was feeding him information," Oliver said, and Barry nodded. "Perhaps Zoom changed tactics after his copy stopped reporting back. Be more cautious." "All this preparation for nothing," Barry grumbled in despair. "You'll get him, Barry. You just have to be patient, but once you do, don't let up an inch," Oliver advised, and Barry agreed. Thank you again for coming. You should return to Star City and tell Felicity and the others I said hello, Barry stated as they clasped hands. I will, and if you need anything, just call, Oliver remarked as he walked away, and Barry nodded. Wells, Joe, and Ronnie approached, with Wells frustratedly kicking over a container. He was furious, and rightly so, as he headed over to the vehicle to store his belongings. I know you said this new Wells is different from the old one, but it's still strange to see, Jiraiya stated as he approached Barry. Imagine how Naruto felt when he saw him, Barry asked. I still can't believe it. I've been all over the planet and seen a lot of things that defy explanation, but other Earths and doppelgangers. That's a new one for me, Jiraiya acknowledged. Linda inquired, are you referring to Naruto's parents' doppelgangers or their daughter? Both. I mean, I know they're not the same Minato and Kushina I knew, but Jiraiya was at a loss for words. But it's as if they never left, Ronnie concluded, and Jiraiya agreed. Naruto said the same thing, they're different, and their history is similar to ours, but the most important aspects of them are the same as the people you and Naruto knew. I think he'd be glad you got to meet them. If only to find out what your doppelganger was like. I'd like to think that in another life I'd be a billionaire writer, living on 100 beachfront acres in Hawaii and being tended to by a lovely harem of busty, beautiful women, Jiraiya daydreamed beneath his face mask, while Ronnie, Linda, and Barry looked skeptical. But if Kushina's doppelganger is as ferocious and violent as the one I knew, I'm going to be terrified. Jiraiya approached to collect the last resort grenades, as Ronnie and Linda assisted in gathering their equipment. Joe approached Barry and engaged him in a heart-to-heart dialogue. Barry acknowledged to Joe that, while he was motivated to obtain justice for Naruto, he was also motivated to stop Zoom. The gnawing void inside Barry since the night he traveled back in time and decided to keep the timeline as it was rather than save his mother. An emptiness of bliss that Thon said will always be there, which he thought acquiring Zoom would remedy, but it wasn't. Barry would need to rediscover his own happiness with some words of encouragement from Joe, and while tonight was a bust, they would stop Zoom and gain justice for Naruto. After a few hours, the squad quietly trickled out over the night, their plot to obtain Zoom foiled. Linda, who was equally upset about how the night had gone out, headed to a bar to get a drink. She sat alone at the bar, drinking her beer and refusing to speak to anyone. There were two guys looking her out at the other end of the bar, so they came over to woo her, but Jiraiya jumped in their way and gave them a stare that poured deep into their hearts, threatening a slow and excruciating death. She's not interested. Walk away. Right now, he advised, and the two men couldn't get away quickly enough. After that, Jiraiya sat at the bar and ordered a beer. Linda admonished him, you didn't need to do that. I know you could have kicked their asses, but with Naruto gone, I guess it's up to me to look out for you, Jiraiya said as the two sipped their beer. I never thought of you as a bar hopper. I used to do it a lot for lifestyle pieces or just a good time, but now I just needed a drink, Linda explained. Amen to that, Jiraiya said as he sipped his drink and ordered another. His metahuman abilities gave him extraordinary physiology, including superhuman strength, speed, durability, and reflexes. Not only above human levels, but true super soldier levels. Jiraiya could roll an M1 Abrams tank onto its side, increasing his maximum strength to 55 tons and allowing him to sprint at a maximal speed of 200 miles per hour. His resilience was such that he could withstand being hit by cars, having a bomb explode in his face, falling several stories, and being shot with bullets other than large-caliber armor-piercing shots. Those pricked. His healing was as intense, which meant that, like speedsters, his body burned away alcohol as fast as it entered. Would you like to talk about what's bothering you? Linda responded, a lot bothers me, Jiraiya, and I can't do anything about it. Linda. We're gonna get Zoom. Barry and the others are on it, and they've got literal geniuses there, and if the kid is as smart as everyone says he is, his plans will definitely work. You just need time, he said. Linda said, which is exactly the hardest part. Her voice cracked slightly as tears welled up in her eyes. I was in the lowest place of my life when Naruto never returned after the singularity. For months. It was the hardest thing I have ever had to go through, but slowly I managed to pull myself back up only to have to go through it all over again. Hearing what happened to him, what he went through and that he died, it was the single hardest piece of news I've ever had to hear. My heart felt like it broke, and for days it felt like it wouldn't go away. Even now it still feels like my heart won't ever go back to the way it was before. I guess that's just the effect the kid had on people, Jiraiya admitting his deep love for Naruto and his sorrow at his passing. Linda inquired, does it ever get any easier? Number. If it did. Then that's a different story. The pain of them being gone will hurt. But that pain will remind you how much you loved them and how much they meant to you, and that love will live on no matter what, Jiraiya said. Linda wiped away some tears as the two shared a touching and heartfelt moment. It was a weird pairing, but they were two people Naruto had affected deeply and personally, and his death was difficult but also reminded them of how much they loved him. Jiraiya sipped his second drink and wiped a tear from the corner of his eye. Come on, drinking your sorrows away is a tired cliché. You just need to sleep. I'll pay and drive you home. You have a car? Linda inquired. Jiraiya replied as Linda finished her beer, borrowed a Star Labs van. While Jiraiya paid the bartender for the beers, she grabbed her coat and pocketbook. As she went out of the bar, a blast of wind brushed past her, followed by the unexpected entrance of a black-clad speedster flashing with blue and blood-red lightning. Zoom leaned down and hissed at Linda, who was paralyzed in disbelief. You were looking for me. He then grabbed her and flew away. Linda! Jiraiya yelled, but she and Zoom were long gone. Shit! He grabbed his phone and dialed Star Labs before sprinting to his car. Cisco finished attaching a new emblem to Barry's suit at Star Labs after the old one was tossed through a breach. There you go. It's almost as if you think these things grow on trees or something, Cisco replied to Barry. And we lost the other one for no reason, Barry admitted as they approached Caitlin, Ronnie, Minato, and Kushina, who stood next to Wells. Wells was watching the dock footage over and over again. Harry, you've been watching that footage over and over again. If we saw anything unusual, we'd have found it by now, Minato said. Wells mumbled, it should have worked. I believe Oliver and Jiraiya are correct. We have Zoom's time remnant, so perhaps when the original realized his copy wasn't coming to meet him, he wised up and changed strategies, Barry speculated. When the alarm went off, Kushina wondered, so, now what? Caitlin inquired, Gideon, what's going on? Zoom has arrived on Earth 1, and I've detected his distinct energy trail, she reported as Caitlin accepted a call from Jiraiya. She informed them, guys, Zoom has Linda. Gideon, where is he? Barry inquired, and she displayed satellite imagery as well as security camera footage of Star Laboratories. Zoom was perched on the roof. Barry suited up and dashed outside the building, up to the roof, where he saw Zoom for the first time. As he held Linda over the edge, his black costume, terrifying mask, and blue and blood-red lightning flashed around his body. Put her down. You like to fish with bait? I do, too. Zoom had Linda by the neck, her feet dangling over the side. Linda strained in his hands, but she cast a peek over at Barry. Linda yelled, now. Linda fired a point-blank laser blast into Zoom's face, knocking him off the roof, and Barry covered his eyes. Linda collapsing, she used her talents to fly to safety. Zoom yelled out in pain as he dropped to the ground, but he managed to flip his body and run down the side of the building mid-fall. Barry pursued him and tried to surprise him from behind, but Zoom deflected his attack and pushed him away. When Zoom came to a halt, Barry fell to the ground but immediately sprang to his feet. Zoom's face had been charred and blistered, but it was mostly unharmed. That was because some of his lightning had protected him from Linda's light blast, and he had closed his eyes in time to avoid losing his vision. I caution you, Barry. My scans of Zoom show that his energy and negative speed force levels have increased since his fight with Naruto, Gideon said. Risen how much, Gideon? Barry inquired. At his current power level, I've calculated that Zoom's projected top speed could be equal to yours. His connection to the negative speed force has not only increased his power, but it has also allowed him to sap energy from the speed force to increase his own speed, making him even more dangerous than before, Gideon warned. Minato, Kushina, and Wells examined the cortical readings, and she was correct. She's right, Barry. Based on these readings, Zoom is definitely up to your new top speed. You must exercise caution, Kushina cautioned. Barry, Linda, and Gaara are getting ready, and Jiraiya is on his way, Caitlin explained. Just buy some time and be defensive until they're ready. That's only 5 minutes, Cisco said, adding that Barry needed to buy some time. Fortunately, Naruto's data on Zoom contained a psychological profile, which revealed that the man was unstable yet single-minded in his preoccupation with speed, and Naruto noticed how the man had an ego. Barry could tell from his brief meeting with Hunter Zolomon that playing to that could give him an advantage and buy him some time. "Why don't you take that mask off, Hunter?" Barry suggested as Zoom inclined his head to the side before reaching up to remove his mask. Barry could see Hunter Zolomon's face the second he removed it, but to his astonishment, Hunter's face had visible black veins all over it, as if he was sick, too. "What the hell happened to him?" wondered Wells. "I guess I was right. You did capture my time remnant, but it's irrelevant, he was disposable," Hunter observed. "What happened to you?" Barry asked, tracing one of Hunter's clawed fingers on his cheek and one of the black veins. "An unfortunate gift from the negative speed force. I guess the speed boost came at a cost. Something to do with the genetic degradation you're experiencing," Barry pointed out, and Zoom chuckled. "So you did capture my time remnant. I'll admit it's a steep price to pay, but the negative speed force has made me stronger than I ever imagined possible, increasing my speed and healing while also halting my genetic degradation," Zoom boasted. "And instead made it visible so everyone can see just how messed up you are on the outside and how it matches with the inside," Barry observed. "A small price to pay to become the fastest man alive, Barry. You may be fast, but so was your friend." Hunter reached behind him and grabbed Naruto's impulse goggles from his back pocket. He treasured them as if they were some kind of weird prize. As everyone in the cortex watched Zoom holding Naruto's goggles, Barry's throat became stuck in his gut. On one of the lenses, there was a significant, visible crack. Zoom reapplied his mask as he threw Impulse's goggles to the ground and smashed them with his boot. "And the euphoric sound his bones made when I broke them was euphoric." Barry's face turned bright crimson as he became enraged at Zoom, physically taunting him. Barry then dashed around the Star Labs in a circle as fast as he could. "Barry, what are you doing?" Kushina inquired. "Oh, he's gonna thunderbolt him," Cisco exclaimed as Barry slid to a halt and shot his lightning at Zoom, who charged forward, leapt over the lightning, snatched it, and threw it back at him. Barry was smacked in the chest and propelled backward, slamming into a glass display board at Star Labs. "Okay, that didn't work," Barry grumbled as he rose to his feet. "Not exactly, but it did buy us some time." A gigantic tidal wave of sand burst from behind Zoom and moved to engulf him, so he ran forward at Barry when he was struck by a powerful ray of light, sending him skidding across the ground. Gaara floated down to Barry as he looked up and saw Linda in her Dr. Light gear. "I'm sorry it took us so long," Gaara said as he helped Barry up. "No, right on time," Barry remarked as the group watched Zoom get to his feet. Linda's light blast should have knocked him out cold, but they noticed that despite his suit's burns and injuries, Zoom's blue and red lightning was shielding him like a shield. It wasn't like Naruto's Speed Force armor, but rather his lightning worked as a buffer, protecting him from harm. "All right, Zoom. Let's see just how good you think you are." Zoom boasted, "You brought friends. All the more to die for you." "No, who are you going to stop?" Barry accelerated forward, and Zoom followed suit as the two collided and raced around Star Laboratories. As Barry and Zoom raced around each other, Linda and Gaara flew up into the sky. Barry had gotten quicker, but Zoom had gotten faster as well, so the two were nearly equal. Barry was punched in the face, but he was able to block the next punch and elbow Zoom in the face. Zoom was hit in the gut before kneeing Barry in the side, and the two continued to fight strike after strike at breakneck speed. Their race began to take them all over Star Laboratories, as they continued to exchange punches, with Barry in the lead at times and Zoom in the lead at others. Barry hit Zoom twice in the face before leaping over a wall and landing a flying punch. Zoom pursued him as they raced up the side of Star Labs. Zoom smacked Barry in the face as they continued to run up one of the spires atop Star Laboratories. They jumped high into the air and entered freefall, with the two continuing to battle, but as they fell to the ground, Zoom began to gain the upper hand. When Linda swooped by and blasted Zoom with two beams of light, he jumped on top of Barry and continued to pound his face. Zoom noticed the strike and hopped off Barry to gain some distance, allowing him to avoid the blast in midair. Barry was plummeting to the ground when Gaara flew by and caught him with a big sand fist, repositioning him. As he watched Zoom use wind funnels to fly to the ground with Linda behind him, Barry spit up some blood. She sent another light blast, this time hitting Zoom in the back, causing him to tumble into the parking lot. Linda landed on the ground and quickly fired twin beams of light at Zoom, but he shielded himself with his blue and red lightning. Linda clenched her teeth in rage and continued to fire light beams towards Zoom, his lightning flickering at a rapid pace to protect him. He then phased such that Linda's light beams passed right through him before stepping to the side and super accelerated forward, preparing to murder her. He reached out his hand to sever her heart, but she vanished as he approached. Zoom came to a halt and searched about for the Dr. Light doppelganger, but she was nowhere to be found. It seemed as if she had suddenly gone from his sight, which should have been impossible given her lack of speed. Wham! Zoom's face twisted as he felt a fist punch him, but he couldn't see who it was. When he looked around, he was punched across the face again, but this time he felt a kick to the groin followed by another kick to his side. Zoom threw his arms wildly in an attempt to hit whatever was striking him, but he had no idea where it was coming from. Barry then charged from his flank and super speed tackled him on the ground, landing multiple quick speed punches to his face before attempting to stab him with a dart containing the speed dampening nanites, but Zoom grabbed and fractured his wrist before throwing him off. Zoom grabbed up the dart and was about to attack Barry with it when he was blasted from the side by a flash of light. He dropped the dart and fell to the ground, clutching his side in agony as the light beam burned away part of his suit and his side. Linda returned as a flash of light appeared. She'd figured out how to bend light around her body and become invisible. It came in useful at the perfect time. Gaara, right now. A tsunami of sand rushed in from all directions, engulfing Zoom in a massive sand bubble. As the massive sand bubble shrank and wrapped around Zoom, Gaara hovered down and clasped his hands together. As Zoom sought to break free, some of the sand was thrown out or jostled around. Gaara was doing everything he could to keep the sand from breaking apart as it closed in on Zoom to keep him from escaping, and the apparent strain on his face and beads of sweat on his cheeks revealed it. Gaara strained to keep the sand from cracking, but that was easier said than done. "Guys, we're in need of a containment situation right now," Barry informed the others. "It's on its way at full speed, get out," honking of a car. A Star Labs van drove over the curb and into the parking lot, heading directly for them. Jiraiya placed a block on the accelerator pedal and tied the seatbelt to the steering wheel to keep it straight before diving out the rear and collapsing. Linda went straight up, Barry sped away, and Gaara flew away on his sand cloud, leaving Zoom in his sand jail. One of the last resort grenades was sitting in the front seat. Jiraiya had kept one on him after their dock attack had failed, just in case. He set the timer for 5 seconds, which was just enough time for the van. It collided with the sand bubble just as the timer went off, erupting in a dazzling blue energy field. It engulfed everything inside a 30-foot radius, including Zoom. The van totally shut down, and the sand cage surrounding Zoom sagged to the ground. The energy field disturbed Gaara's hold over the sand, causing it to lose its shape and fall to the ground, burying Zoom's body beneath the sand. Jiraiya approached the van and sand pile with a handgun drawn, as Gaara and Linda hovered nearby on the ground. When Barry launched a lightning bolt at the sand, it instantaneously transformed into glass, which served as a perfect little jail for Zoom until they could get him inside a containment cage. Linda inquired, "Did that do it?" "Let's not take any chances and get him in a containment cell as soon as possible," Jiraiya informed them. "We're well on our way with the power-dampening cuffs, icers, and speed-dampening nanites." As Ronnie and Wells hurried out of the cortex, he said. Barry decided to speed things up and dashed over to fetch them and bring them over. "Cisco, do you have a cell ready for us?" Barry inquired. "I've got one ready and waiting for you," Cisco responded while Caitlin, Minato, and Kushina all grinned. "I still can't believe we did it. It's all over." When Linda observed anything, she said it. The glass emits a faint shine. Jiraiya observed it as well, and noticed a blue and red glow emanating from the glass. The light was becoming brighter, and the glass began to vibrate. "Get down." Jiraiya shielded Linda as the glass prison exploded, knocking them all back and cutting them up a little. "Rahhh." Zoom yelled in rage as blue and red lightning shot from his body like a lightning storm, indicating his rage and the power his raw emotions were providing him from the negative speed force. The last resort grenade may not have worked, but the negative speed force shielded Zoom from its harmful consequences, resulting in a momentary short circuit of his powers. Jiraiya stood up and fired his pistol at Zoom, but the wicked speedster vanished. He rushed by, sending Jiraiya soaring through the air before crashing to the ground, but Zoom didn't stop there, picking up Jiraiya and pounding on him all over. Jiraiya fought back with his super soldier toughness and reflexes, but Zoom was too quick and began vibrating his fists, making the strikes hurt more. Jiraiya's face was bleeding as Zoom hit him repeatedly in the face and stomach with enough force to kill a normal human.
Linda stood up and shot a laser beam at Zoom, but he swerved to the side, causing her to strike Jiraiya.
Zoom rushed around her, making her invisible, but he wasn't going to fall for the same ruse twice. He whirled around and launched a flash of lightning from his body, which exploded out in a wide arc, regrettably striking Linda. She resurfaced, screaming in agony from being electrified, just as Zoom sped up and slammed into her, sending her smashing into the Star Labs van. She crumpled the side of the van and landed hard, but instead of finishing her off, Zoom sped to the side. Gaara hastily produced a sand cloud under his feet to gain some distance, but Zoom struck him with a lightning bolt before he could react, turning it to glass. Gaara landed hard on some of the glass and was cut as Zoom sped over and violently pounded him in the face and chest. He knew Gaara was a threat, therefore he was going to take him out, smashing his mask with one punch and stabbing him in the side with a fragment of glass. He then stomped on his left knee and flung him to the ground. Arg! Zoom raised his glass to kill Gaara, but Barry tackled him away in pain. The two fell to the ground, but Zoom rose to his feet quickly and seized Barry, severely beating him. Zoom was savage and attacked Barry repeatedly in the face, chest, stomach, and back in such an irregular manner that it was like fighting a wild animal. When Wells and Ronnie saw Barry was being beaten, they grabbed rifles equipped with the speed-dampening nanite dart. Zoom hit Barry in the gut, causing him to double over, then a powerful jab to the back snapped part of his spine and caused him to tumble to the ground. When Wells and Ronnie launched their darts, Zoom raised his hand to impale Barry through the chest, only for Zoom to catch both and look directly at them. Never forget. I am the fastest man on the planet.
He then took the darts and stabbed Barry in the chest with both of them before returning his gaze to Wells. You're the next.
Zoom then grabbed Barry's body and bolted. Ronnie returned Linda's, Gaara's, and Jiraiya's gaze and dashed over to assist them. Guys, I need your help. As he hurried over to Gaara, Ronnie shouted into his headset.
Zoom rushed through town, dragging Barry's body behind him, before breaking into Central City Picture News, where Iris and some of the crew were still working. Zoom arrived and crushed Barry's body against a table, which he then held up. Iris and the others were shocked to see one of the staff point a video camera at the demonic speedster.
Look at your hero. Zoom then hoisted Barry's body like a trophy. This man isn't a deity, he isn't anything.
He sped through the city till he got at the Central City Police Station and halted on the second-floor balcony. When Joe, his partner Patty, Captain Singh, and the other officers in the room noticed the intruder had the Flash's body, they pulled out their weapons and leveled them at him. The Flash's days of protecting this city are over. No, please hold your fire. Joe yelled, not wanting Barry to be hit by chance. Put him down. Patty placed her order, but it was like yelling at the sun. It had no effect.
What will you do now that you've lost your beloved hero? Shoot that thing, right now. Singh gave the command, and every single police officer unloaded their pistols until they were empty. Zoom simply used one hand to capture all of their bullets in the air and then let them all fall to the ground, demonstrating their ineffectiveness. Nice try. When Zoom arrived in the cortex with Barry's body, Wells ran into the cortex as Caitlin, Cisco, Kushina, and Minato tried to track him down. Barry, Caitlin yelled in concern. Harrison Wells, you thought you could defeat me with this? Zoom wrenched Barry's hood off his head, revealing his bloodied and barely conscious visage.
Wells admitted, I made a mistake. Yes, it's a costly one. Zoom then lifted Barry and jabbed him in the side, causing him to scream and grunt in pain. Your friend put up a better fight. but you weren't quick enough to stop me. Flash, farewell.
Zoom drew his hand back to phase through Barry's body and kill him right then and then.
A bone snaps. Arg. Zoom threw Barry to the ground, and he shouted out in pain as he fell to his knee. He and the others noticed that a little sand cluster had wrapped itself around Zoom's left calf and crushed it. After being pulled back to Star Labs by Ronnie, Gaara managed to maintain consciousness and enough willpower to send sand through the building and into the cortex in a last-ditch attempt to halt Zoom. A sand burial. Gaara's fist tightened, and the sand tightened around Zoom's left calf, crushing it like a vice before he went out. When Cisco and Minato noticed Zoom was immobilized, they went for icers, but before they could fire a shot, he limped away to safety with superhuman speed.
Barry. Kushina and Caitlin ran over to help. Remain with me, Barry.
Please stick with me, Caitlin murmured as they brought Barry to the med lab to care for him, but he wasn't the only one who needed assistance. Gaara, Jiraiya, and Linda were assisted into the med lab by Cisco, Minato, and Ronnie. They were all gravely damaged, but only Gaara required emergency medical attention due to a broken knee. Cisco summoned Tsunade, who rushed over from the shelter to assist. Caitlin had been able to stabilize Barry's condition before assisting Kushina with Gaara. When Joe came, Barry reacted angrily, shoving Wells up against a wall. It's all on you. You die if Barry dies. Joe forewarned him.
Joe, Barry's vitals have returned to normal. Allow him to leave, Caitlin informed him. No, Caitlin. Why? What good is that to Barry? It's going to help me. That's enough, Kushina yelled, causing everyone to quiet down. I know you're worried about Barry, but he's fine, and whether you like it or not, this was his choice. This isn't about Wells, so put your misplaced rage on the back burner. Now, I have patients here who really need my assistance, so sit down and shut up. Joe relented, allowing Kushina to concentrate on her rehabilitation. Caitlin assisted when she could, as did Wells, Minato, and Cisco. Jiraiya had broken ribs, a significant concussion, and extensive injuries to his chest and burns as a result of Linda's blast. Fortunately, Jiraiya's improved regeneration meant he wouldn't be in as much risk if he wasn't a metahuman.
They set some broken bones, and with a shot of the healing serum, he'd be okay.
Linda was exhausted, had numerous bruised ribs, lacerations, and a serious concussion, but she wasn't in immediate danger. Gaara was in a lot of pain, but they sewed up the shard of glass stab and worked on healing his knee.
Tsunade, thankfully, arrived and utilized her talents to assist heal Gaara. Her abilities restored much of the damage to his knee, and Kushina was able to repair the remainder. She was a skilled doctor, and Gaara would have full movement in his limb with the healing serum and Tsunade's assistance. Although all four would recover, the squad was shaken. They threw everything they had at Zoom and were defeated. They required a miracle. To be continued.
That's it for this part, guys. Thanks for listening to this video. I hope that you enjoyed this particular story, and if you did, like, share, and subscribe for more. And thank you all for helping support, and have a great day.